I pretended to have a job offer so my boss would pay me more money, and it actually worked. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I worked at a chain salon in the US for minimum wage plus tips. We got paid on a sliding scale. The more you added services, the more your hourly pay. Then, for back to school, we started offering $10 haircuts. It's dumb to offer a big discount on back to school, because that's when everyone needs a haircut. But whatever. To advertise this sale, we had to stand on a rickety step stool and hang a 10-foot-long, 3-foot-wide banner off the roof of our store. The step stool alone made it a dangerous task, but on top of it, the sidewalk was uneven. Our manager insisted we do it twice a day, open and close, in case someone steals the banner. Because certainly someone would want to steal a banner with our logo that says $10 haircuts. It was annoying, but I was looking forward to my next paycheck. I had a high service dollar per hour, which should have meant a bigger hourly pay and paycheck, except it didn't. That $7 per haircut discount, it was coming out of our final service dollar calculations, and we ended up making significantly less than usual. I'd worked there for years, and this was the smallest back-to-school paycheck I'd ever seen. I went in the next day and was ticked. That morning, a coworker who was a total brown nose and gossip and I were standing outside setting up the banner. It was my turn to stand on the rickety step stool, and I said I was glad this'll be the last time I ever do this. I was fully prepared to make a joke about how I was gonna fall and crack my head open, when all of a sudden a petty revenge idea came into my mind, and I swiftly executed it. When she asked why, I told her not to tell anyone, but I'd accepted a job at another salon with a set schedule, higher commission, and $5 more an hour. I said I'd planned on putting in my 2 weeks, but they needed me to start sooner, so I was gonna work the weekend and not come back. This would leave us understaffed for the back-to-school rush. After reiterating that she could not tell anyone, especially our boss, she agreed. I left early that day, and on my next shift, my boss pulled me into her office. She said she'd heard a rumor that I was leaving to work at a different salon. I told her I had a much better offer elsewhere, but if she could match that, I would love to stay. She had to put a call in to our district leader about the raise, but said I could work with a set schedule starting the following week. I was working until 9 p.m. some days and at 9 a.m. the next. The unpredictable schedule made finding childcare a pain in the butt. I was consistently ranked number 2 in sales in our store and the district, so the district leader approved the raise, and I stayed there another 5 years, which means I got an additional $39,000 in pay for accidentally telling the salon gossip my secret. I got 20% commission on $500 to $1,000 a week in product sales. The pro revenge? I started printing out my service sales slip from the day before at the beginning of every shift. So when payroll readjusted the paychecks to include coupons, I could pull up my record and dispute it. According to payroll, there was nothing they could do about it. I stayed another 5 years, raising the issue sporadically, until they brought back the $10 haircut sale and I quit. A few months after I left, I was made aware that a different employee in another state filed a class action lawsuit, and I got a letter asking if I wanted to be a part of it. I accepted, and the lawyer loved receiving 5 years worth of documentation, emails from corporate and payroll. They had to go back through all of my paychecks and compensate me for the difference. This included adding the free haircuts reward program and discounted haircuts as their whole amount, increasing the service dollar. 19 cents an hour here and 30 cents an hour there added up, and despite the fact that the settlement was split with a lot of people, I got $10K from that in addition to my adjusted pay, which was around half the settlement amount. I mean, our original poster couldn't have had that plan work out much better. That gossipy coworker played right into their hands. Sometimes a company needs to feel like they're about to lose one of their good employees before they actually give them what they deserve. They're gonna try and skate by and give you the bare minimum as long as possible. Only once you've finally had enough and say you're fed up will they actually bump it up a notch. It really sucks because it shows that they could have been paying you that the entire time, but were just choosing not to. It really makes you feel like you're not appreciated at a company. Clearly, this place was going a step beyond that though, considering there was a class action lawsuit against them from one of their former employees. But that was just icing on the cake for our original poster. I'm sure you heard no complaints from them. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. For the last 6 months, I've been playing adult entertainment audio through my brother's wireless earphones, without realizing. Right, so for the past 6 months, every few weeks or so, I've noticed that when I'm watching a video, or maybe in this instance, adult entertainment specifically, the audio stops playing for a few minutes. Not often, but every now and then. I never thought much of it, to be honest, and I always sort of brushed it off, assuming I accidentally connected to my own AirPods. Today, my pretty innocent brother comes to talk to me about something that scares him at night. He says every few weeks, he'll be listening to sleep music while trying to fall asleep. And then all of a sudden, a loud moaning starts playing out of his earphones, scaring the life out of him. He told me that he thinks someone's hacking him. It instantly clicked that I'm an idiot, and that he had once paired his earbuds to my phone. So basically every time he got his wireless earphones on in the same house as me, and I go to play something, my phone must take priority and pair to them. And it seems to always be late at night when I'm trying to take care of myself and he's listening to sleep music. I'm so stupid. I'm assuming he knows what it is, but is too embarrassed to say so because he thinks some evil hacker or troll is playing a sick joke on him. Now, do I tell him it's my phone and that I've been watching these videos and blindly connecting to his wireless earphones? Or is this completely the other way around, and he's trying to save me the embarrassment? Because I'm pretty sure on Android devices it'll say something along the lines of wireless earphones paired to phone successfully, something like that, in which it would state my iPhone's name. I mean, I haven't been doing it intentionally, but I scared him nonetheless. Am I the jerk? This is just an unfortunate accident, I guess. No nefarious intent involved here, it's not something you were aware of, so I don't think you're a jerk in any way. But if you're not hearing the audio and it seems to be coming through another source, that's maybe something you should look into before you continue going about your business. I doubt you want others to know exactly what it is you're watching in your private time. Karen thinks I work at the grocery store despite the fact that I'm wearing a military uniform. For this particular story, I was actually in uniform, which makes the whole situation all the more weird. Canadian working uniform for the Army is a digital camouflage pattern called CADPAT. Pretty unique and identifiable. The store I was in wears black pants and tannish-colored collared shirts. In this story, we have me, old lady, dumb lady, and the store manager. I had just gotten off from work and was on my way home and stopped for groceries. Our command let us stop in uniform on the way home to do this. They see it as a visual recruiting tactic and lets people know that we're in the community. As I was looking at milk trying to decide what to buy, a little old lady came up to me and asked for help. What threw me off initially was the fact that she used my rank, gunner. She explained that her grandson was a corporal in the Regular Force Artillery Regiment. She was struggling lifting the milk bags. I decided I would help her shop and get her groceries at least into her ride for her. I spent a good 45 minutes with her helping her shop around. The interaction with the dumb lady came as the old lady was checking out. Now that you're done, can you get my things for me? Sorry ma'am, I don't work here. I have my own shopping to do. I'm sure one of the bag boys or stalkers could help you out. You clearly work here. You got all that old bat stuff for her. Now, I demand you help me. He really isn't an employee. He's a soldier, just helping an old woman do some shopping. I don't care what he says he is. He clearly knows the store, so he must work here. You're done shopping, so he can help me now. She was starting to get a little loud and attracting attention. Ma'am, I really don't work here. If you could lower your voice, I could help you find an employee if you really need some assistance. Don't you tell me what to do, boy. Now a manager has shown up due to the commotion. Good afternoon. Is there anything I can help you out with? Yes, this boy's refusing to help me after he helped another customer. This is terrible customer service and he should be fired. He clearly doesn't work here. He's a gunner in the Canadian Armed Forces. He's wearing a military uniform and everything.
He definitely doesn't work here. We don't have any soldiers that work in the store, even reservists, which I assume he is.
You all have terrible customer service. Haven't you ever heard of the customer's always right? I'm calling corporate, and I'll never shop here again.
That's perfectly fine. The door's right this way.
He then escorted the dumb lady outside, with her yelling the whole way. Well, that's enough excitement for this old woman. Hopefully the rest of your day is much more peaceful. I'll have my son come pick me up. Go do your shopping, and thanks for helping me. Anytime, ma'am, and tell your grandson thanks from original poster. I then went and finished my shopping and went to get the heck out of there. The store manager was waiting for me at the front and opened a register for me to check out. He gave me the store employee discount too, saying,
"You clearly work here after all,"
with an accompanying wink and laugh. He then told me he was a reservist while going through university and thanked me for what I did. Dumb lady is definitely an appropriate title for this woman. Clearly, this guy does not work here. It's very obvious based on what he's wearing. It's a pretty standout uniform, you might say. How you could get them confused with a grocery worker is beyond me. It's pretty clear he's just trying to do a good deed and help a little old lady with her shopping. Just because he extends that good deed to her doesn't mean you get to demand the same from him. And busting out the customer's always right argument is just nonsense. He is a customer too, after all. Thankfully, Karen promised not to come back. Hopefully, she'll stick to that. My CEO says you can't get quarters for bug bites, not realizing I've had a serious allergic reaction. When I was in the Army, my unit had a training day one day where we did tactical movements in close-quarter combat with paintball guns. It was pretty fun, except it was in Texas, in the middle of summer, in a training area full of tall grass that I ended up crawling around in a lot. I didn't notice any problems until a couple hours later when I was getting ready to head home, and my legs started burning. I pulled my boots off and rolled my pants up, and my feet and legs up to my mid-thigh were swollen and covered in hundreds of angry red welts. Apparently, I'd crawled through a nest of chiggers, tiny biting bugs common in America that are apparently called Trombiculidae officially. They'd gone to town on my legs, bad enough to provoke an allergic reaction. I drive myself to the emergency room at the base hospital, and while I'm waiting to be seen and feeling more and more terrible but needing to focus on something else, I started counting the bites. I stopped when I got to 100, and that was just on the inside of my right calf. The doctor had never seen anything like it, and I ended up getting a massive dose of steroids, antibiotics, and anti-inflammatories, all hospital grade with serious side effects of their own, as well as 4 days of quarters, the military equivalent of being told to stay home and don't come into work. My girlfriend came and picked me up from the hospital and drove me home, because at that point I was in no state to drive myself, between the allergic reaction and the meds I was on to treat it. On the way home, I call my sergeant to let him know about my situation so we can get word up the chain of command. About an hour after that, I get a call from the first sergeant, the senior-most NCO in the unit. Now, she was one of the most incompetent first sergeants I ever worked with during my time in the Army, constantly making terrible decisions, mindlessly greenlighting whatever terrible decision our equally incompetent captain came up with, and micromanaging people unnecessarily. She told me that my quarters had been revoked by the captain and that I have to come in the following day. I tell her that I'm holding orders in my hand from a doctor who's also a lieutenant colonel that I'm supposed to take time off to recover. She responds with, "You can't get quarters from bug bites," and rants at me that I'm just malingering and trying to get out of work. There was no way I could possibly be seriously ill just from some bug bites. I tried to explain that I'd had an allergic reaction, but she wasn't having it, insisting I was a liar and a bad soldier because of it. I was to be at formation the next morning at 0900. Because of the extensive exercise we all got at the training event, they canceled PT for the day. She told me to show up with my supposed quarters slip, and they would decide then if they were going to punish me more for trying to pull this stunt. Okay, so I wore my PT uniform, a t-shirt and shorts, rather than our fatigues the next day, and had my girlfriend drive me in. I was still too messed up from the bites and meds to drive. I figured if I was going to get in trouble anyways, being in the wrong uniform would be the least of my worries. But my bare legs instead showed off the literal hundreds of now angrily red, almost purple or black in some cases, huge welts on my legs. The skin was more welt than not by the next morning, and I walked up showing off that rather horrific sight to my entire company of more than 100 enlisted NCOs and officers. Literally everyone who sees me is like, "What the heck happened to your legs?" It's clear to every person in the company that I am actually legitimately having an allergic reaction just by sight alone. The first sergeant hears people making a ruckus, sees me, and turns bright red, knowing she screwed up when she hears me answering warrant officers asking, "Why are you here if you're that sick?" With, "First sergeant made me come in and told me that you can't get quarters because of bug bites." Within 10 minutes, I've handed in a copy of my quarters slip, gotten a quiet and very private apology from the first sergeant, and was sent home for the next 4 days. An allergic reaction to a bug bite is not something you can just write off. It can be life-threatening for people with serious reactions. The first sergeant must not have been entirely clear on the extent of our original poster's reaction. I get that it's harsh in the Army and they don't really mess around, but that's an instance where I think he deserves a couple days off. There's really not going to be a whole lot he can do in that state. But she knew she screwed up the second she saw him, and thankfully was willing to admit that she was wrong. When it's been ordered by a doctor, especially a military doctor, just take their word for it. Don't make the guy have to come all the way in so you can see for yourself first. My boss tried to fire me over ridiculous rules about our dress code, so I used those ridiculous rules to my advantage. This boss has since been fired, which makes this story so much sweeter. But this man was a grade A jerk while he was there. He fired a coworker who'd been there for years and years over petty stuff, constantly reminded people that he was their boss, and asked me to do nonsense work. And when I questioned it, he just said that he was in charge. He threatened to fire me multiple times for being disobedient. Luckily, I was trained to do a job only 3 people were trained to do, and the coworker he fired was one of them. Anyway, he called everyone for a meeting about the dress code and said there were people not tucking their shirts in. Whatever, I always had my shirt tucked in, so I thought I'd get left alone for a day. Nope. He comes over with the dress code printed out and says that we have to talk. I asked him what was up, since I had a tucked-in button-up on. He said my undershirt was light gray, and the rules say it has to be white or navy blue. You've gotta be kidding me. So I looked through the company's rules and it said you can have 2 top buttons undone, and if an undershirt is worn, it must be white or blue. So the next day, I came in without an undershirt and the top 2 buttons undone. I forgot to mention, I'm a pretty hairy guy, and I fluffed up my thick chest hair so it was poofing out like an Italian mobster. I sat directly across from him at the meeting and kept leaning forward. He looked visibly uncomfortable, and after the meeting, I saw him frantically looking through the rulebook. The jerk must not have found anything because he never mentioned it again. This guy does just kind of sound like an overall jerk. I mean, if it's the color of your undershirt, what's really the big deal here? I would think navy would be more of an issue than gray, if the issue is seeing it through a shirt. I'm assuming that's the problem here. Otherwise, what are we even talking about? It's an undershirt. No one's gonna see it. It sounds like this boss did eventually get what was coming to him, though. I guess he picked one too many petty fights. Neighborhood jerks keep stealing stuff out of the back of my buddy's lawn service work truck, so I come up with a plan to make sure they don't do it again. 2 Fridays in a row, he got his gas cans stolen off the back of his truck. I told him to stop leaving them out there, but he said it was too much of a hassle to unload and reload his stuff every night and morning. So last Friday, I filled my own gas can with gasoline and sugar, and swapped it with his without his knowledge. The next morning, I got up and it was gone, exactly like I was hoping. I put his back and he never knew what happened. Sunday afternoon, I came home from the store and saw 3 people in the street working on a car. It's a 2017 Chevy Cobalt. Just found out from another neighbor that they got bad gas somewhere and their car is ruined. I hope they learned their very expensive lesson, and I don't feel bad at all. I mean, that's the definition of karma, isn't it? That's what you get for stealing stuff. Seriously, they couldn't have thought they'd keep getting away with it with no repercussions. At this point, they know exactly what you're gonna steal and when. That leaves them the perfect opportunity to either catch you or at least mess with you. Our original poster chose the latter, to great effect, I might add. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.